Welcome to another great season of Tech Garage, brought to you by RockAuto.com. And I got to tell you, I'm more excited than ever. We're going to stay true to our roots, man. Diagnostics and repair on everyday vehicles, empowering you to work on your car. Brian, and there's so much more.
Absolutely. Folks, we're keeping it real yet again this year. John, one of the things I'm most excited about in this year's segments is the video question of the week. At the end of each show, we're going to be working on a 97 Firebird throughout the entire season. All kinds of teaching moments for all of us in there. Really excited about that.
Yeah, it's an awesome platform, great to teach with. Speaking of teaching, we're introducing a new segment called Garage Ed. This is pretty cool because we're going to actually go through electrical through the whole season, and you're going to see the coolest demos on the planet. You asked for it. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, we're giving it to you right here. But you know, time's money. Tech Garage, we're all about money, man. Let's get to it. We got a Malibu here. This thing's actually crank installing. You saw it a little bit earlier, Brian. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, the code you got is significant. It's a throttle body actuator code, not that fancy of a scan tool. Anybody can collect that code, but it does tell us we've got to start here at the throttle body. So I've got the plenum cover off. We're going to dive into cleaning that, going through the steps it takes there to see what's really going on here.
Yeah, and this is huge. It's a P2176. That's an actual throttle actuator code. Brian, anytime you get a throttle actuator code with drive-by-wire, there's problems. There's a lot of communication going on. But this one here, you know, they all usually start with some coking or some buildup, some carbon on there.
Yeah.
And we'll take a look at it. But if you look at this graphic right here, this is actually pretty cool because it's actually in the service manual. It talks a little bit about coking on there. The oil buildup from the PCV valve, the sludge coming up. You know, we're going direct injection now and different fuel methods. That stuff's building up on there a lot more than it used to in the past.
And with all the sensors on today's engine, everything has to be balanced perfectly. And it really starts with the throttle body. And is that plate closed? Is it doing its job? Is the mixture right? All the sensors tell us that. So this guy's got to be functioning properly. So step one is to get this thing cleaned up. There is a TSB on this. It says clean it first before you jump into any kind of replacement or procedure. So I'm going to get that done.
Time's money. I'll get a demo set up that's showing actually what's going on. You get to work.
Awesome. Okay, step one is to get a good look at the throttle body and gain access. We've taken the plenum cover off, and you can see the throttle body right here. You can actually look down inside and see the heavy carbon tracking that's going on down there. Now, something to consider before you use just any throttle body cleaner is do the legwork and homework and figure out what type of cleaner you need for your vehicle. On Fords, for example, there's actually a varnish or a clear coat inside there to keep the carbon from building up to begin with. Use the wrong stuff, you're going to remove that, then you're going to have an ongoing carbon problem. So we've got the right stuff here from CRC and Rock Auto. You can see the carbon tracking now. If yours has a lot and you're afraid of chunks coming off and going down into the throat down in there into the intake, go ahead and open the plate, take a paper towel, put it down in there to catch anything, and then you can pull that back out. But make sure you can get all of that paper towel out of there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it with some of the spray. You're going to see a big difference right here. Look at that coming right off the walls. Now pretty quickly, I'm going to go in and get that, wipe it down. You can see the bottom part shining right up. You can actually see the evidence on the rag. That little bit of carbon, you wouldn't think it makes a difference, but it really does in today's engines with all the sensoring going on. Let me hit it again up top. Clean this. Now I'm going to show you the part that really matters. So on the plate, the edges can build up carbon. Let me open that for you. Now this doesn't look too bad, but what I'm going to do is hit the cleaner on the rag and wipe this gently. Now this is a fly-by-wire system, doesn't have a mechanical linkage. You don't want to overbear here and bend anything. That plate, you'll see why in a minute, has to line up right back for your idle learn position. The bottom, can't get to it the same way, but I'm going to get what I can on the top. I'm going to get down in as far as I can reach, and the carbon is coming up nicely, and that looks pretty good. Now, this vehicle has a technical service bulletin on it which says clean the throttle body first before jumping into a replacement. So my next step is to reset the idle learn so it knows where to be, take it for a test drive, and John's going to show us why carbon builds up to begin with.
Well, carbon buildup and coking, what's actually going on that throttle body? Only on Tech Garage are we going to look inside of the engine and the different actual fuel injection systems and show you why. Let's start out with this first graphic. Now this first graphic, it's a carburetor. Everybody's familiar with a carburetor. You can see it's actually dumping the fuel up above the throttle plates. I got one right here, and you can see the carburation here, and if I open up the throttle plates, they're located right there. Well, we didn't have much of a problem down there because the fuel and air was washing over those throttle plates plates and keeping them clean. Now what's going on? It's going down into here. Now check this out. If I run this down, the exhaust stroke, and then I come over and the intake stroke. So the intake valve's opening. Well, so are all the other ones during the other stroke. So a lot of the carbon's getting pushed up in there. With that system, we're just washing it right back down. Next, take a look at this next graphic. This is an actual throttle body injection. Now a throttle body injection, really cool. You got an injector up here. We went to computer command control, but I'm dumping fuel and air still going over the throttle plates right there. So we didn't have an issue there as well because we're washing everything down into the cylinders. A lot of the buildup's not occurring. Then what we did, we actually went to multi-port injection. Check out that graphic right there. Although we're not going above the throttle plates, we're actually still washing over the valve, above the valve. The fuel's then going in, coming through the valve and entering the cylinder right there. Multi-port injection, each one. We're washing the top of the cylinders and we're not getting a lot of that carbon blowing up through the system, back into the intake manifold, coking up that throttle plate. Now, what's going on with the newer cars? Actually, direct injection. You can see it right here. I'm going into the cylinder directly. Well, here's our problem. If I'm going directly into the cylinder, I'm not have any fuel on the top of these valves. I'm not washing the valves or I'm not sending any fuel up in the system. So every time these other valves open, some of the carbon gets puffed up into that intake along with oil throughout the system. The PCV valve, that gets on that throttle plate. It starts to coke and you got what Brian has right there.
Well, went out for the test drive and got the same exact code again, the P2176. So what that does is clarifies the problem. The problem is actually the throttle body actuator here on the old throttle body. We're going to need to replace this. Now, we followed the technical service bulletin steps, tried to clean this guy, didn't work, time to replace it. Rock Auto has sent us a whole new throttle body. You'll see here, I'm keeping the cover on it because I don't want any contamination while I'm getting ready to install this. 4 new bolts come with it. There's washers there as well. And most importantly, replace the seal. You'll see where it goes here in a second. Replace this. When I pull the old one out, I can feel a dry, kind of brittle feel to it. A lot of heat cycles on this guy. Very simple to do. Another best practice. Down here at the intake, you want to put a rag in here and protect anything from going down inside. Now I've got this whole area wiped down. You can see there was sand and dirt. That's out of the way. I'll reinstall the new seal. Only goes in one way. Work it down in gently. It's all good. Now keep in mind, this is aluminum bolting into plastic. You don't want to overbear anything here and you got to torque this properly. It only goes on one way. Line your bolts up. Be sure you don't cross thread here. Take your time, get them all started. And there's only one electrical connection. Very, very simple. It clicks on. Be sure you set that lock as well. And I'm going to go ahead and get this guy reinstalled. Then I'm going to torque it down. That's not the complex part of this repair. The hard part is getting this fly-by-wire system relearned. John, you got to show us how all that works.
That drive-by-wire versus cable and that idle learn business, what's that all about? Well, let's take a look at it. We're all familiar with the cable, man. You just push the gas pedal. What was going on? You had a cable right here. We would move it back and forth. Pretty simple. You got a throttle position sensor right there, and important, you have an idle air control motor. Well, why is that important? Because if you have a cable, this guy's actually slamming completely closed. The idle was controlled by the idle air control motor and bypassing it into the engine. Now, on the system we're working on, a little bit different. You can actually see the throttle plates right here. Now the throttle plates are cracked open. There's a percentage for that. Once you get that coking and you get that buildup on there, it's actually going to change the airflow. The computer knows it, bam, there's our code, there's our problem. This has to be precise. Now it's pretty cool because you have an accelerator pedal position sensor right here and you have an actual throttle position sensor with a stepper motor. So what's going on? You push it, computer decides where you want it, he opens up that throttle. It puts it right where you want it. You have no control over it whatsoever. Safe? Yeah, it's real safe. Matter of fact, it's going to be as safe as our Malibu Brian's carrying on with.
Wait for it. You're going to see it and hear it. There it is. 89 inch-pounds at all 4 corners. I tightened that down in an X pattern to pull it down evenly. Notice I haven't yet taken the cover off the new throttle body. I'm doing everything I can to keep that environment clean. Now, one more tip as part of this job. Replace the air filter. Everywhere the nose of this vehicle has ever gone and will go, it comes in through the air filter and ultimately down through this throat. So go ahead and upgrade that. I'm going to grab one from the Rock Auto stash in the back. But for now, it's time to relearn this. Now, that's the hard part. Hey John, you got a hand? I'd love some help here.
Man, I actually brought in the big guns now. You can actually do this procedure, Brian. Sometimes just crank a car up, let it idle for 3 minutes. I mean, that even talks about it with this one. But we're going to go ahead and do an idle learn here. Check your manufacturer service manual and see which one you do. Simply is just go into special test. If I scroll down in the special test right here, you can actually see it's got an idle learn reset. Well, that's pretty cool. I'll just hit idle learn reset. Go ahead and hit it. And what it's going to do, it's go ahead and load in the data. We're looking at some of that stuff I talked about earlier right here. Go ahead and do the idle learn test. There it goes. Bam. It's actually talking to the computer, the accelerator pedal position sensor, the throttle position sensor, and it says, hey, I'm happy.
Everything's lined back up, so I can take the cover off. Now, just visually, I can tell that plate looks like it's where it's supposed to be, but that's not enough, right? You got to actually measure it specifically through this gauge and getting it reset.
And that's what it's doing. I mean, we looked at the actual idle air control versus that APP, and you know, it's a little bit different, but it's not scary. You can do these jobs. I mean, this car here, well, it's chock full of electricity. I mean, there's a lot to it, so
Sure
we're going to
is.
go with that as well. Brian, there's only a little left. What is left?
Very simple from here. We'll reinstall that engine cover. There's a rubber boot that goes around here with a good clamp. Got to make sure that's tight. Get the air duct pathway tightened back up, and we're good for the next test drive, man.
Well, this car's full of electricity, and so is our Garage Ed segment coming up after the commercial. Stick around. There's plenty more. Check Garage, presented by RockAuto.com.